What's cracking, guys? Omar Isaf here, back with another video, finally filming when it is daylight, confirming thus that I'm not a vampire. I'm a vampire! I'm a vampire! I told you guys, check this out. We're talking about hypertrophy. There's been a lot of talk about progression schemes when it comes to strength, and I think those are very important. When you want to get stronger, you need to know what you're doing. You can't just go in week to week and think, I'll lift a little bit more weight. It doesn't work that way. But the same is true when it comes to hypertrophy. And here's what I mean. A lot of programs you'll see, they're merely templates that kind of give you an idea of what you should be doing, but not really, because they won't tell you how to progress. And remember, if you want to build muscle, it's all about progressive overload, what you do week to week to perturb your body to change. So you'll see a lot of these programs, and for the main movement, they'll say something like a 3x8, and that's great. And they might give you an RP, so like a RP8, RP9, or even maybe percentages, but if you look week to week, month to month, there's no real program to help you handle more volume, get a little bit stronger, and overall make progress on those main movements. This is where this entire video comes into place. If you want to just check out in the description, I have the full progression scheme. It's basically a 13 to 15 week cycle, let's say, for hypertrophy. You can repeat it 2 times, so that'll give you 26 to 30 total weeks of how to progressively overload properly your main movement as it relates to hypertrophy. And I say hypertrophy because, once again, the goal here is to build muscle. You'll notice this is completely different than if you wanted to get really strong. There's going to be a lot more volume, the rep ranges are going to be a little bit higher, and there's going to be 2 assumptions I'm going to have moving forward if you will use this progression scheme. The first is that I'm going to assume you want to build muscle, which means you have to be in a caloric surplus. You need to be eating. I don't want to hear anybody asking, can I do this while I'm cutting? No, this is designed specifically because there's a lot of volume for you to be gaining a little bit of weight while you're doing this program. So instead of being 180 pounds constant after your first 13 to 15 week cycle, you should be about 185, 186 pounds, at least up 5 to 6 pounds. And if you do the full 26 to 30 weeks, you'll be up anywhere between 10 to 15 pounds, hopefully just naturally being in that caloric surplus. So you'll notice, because I'll tell you to do 32 reps at 75%, a 4x8. That's a lot of volume, but that 75% is based off of the 1 rep max when you first started. When you've built 10 more pounds or added 10 pounds to your frame, that 75% is probably not going to feel like 75%. So that's my first assumption. The second one would be that the 1 rep max that you enter is something relatively recent. It wasn't a total grind, and you know what you're doing. If you don't know what your 1 rep max is, I got you covered. In the description will be a rough calculator to estimate your 1 rep max. But if it's not a recent 1 rep max, what you can do instead, or if you just want to be cautious, I get it because it's a lot of volume, you could do 95% of your true 1 rep max. So instead of putting in 100% when you calculate this, put in 95% just to be safe. So those are the 2 assumptions. Let's move forward with how to progress as it relates to hypertrophy for your main movement. This entire video is going to be about your main movement. And I do think when it comes to size, you should try and pick movements that you could get stronger gradually over time and handle more volume. Movements that feel good on your body for the particular area you're trying to target. Typically, for these big compound movements, we're talking the squat, bench, deadlift, overhead press. But if you don't like the back squat, if instead you want to do front squats, well, Skippy, you do your front squats. If you don't like the bench press, you want to focus on the incline bench press, you do the incline bench press. But whatever you pick, stick with it for this entire progression scheme. Now here's where things get interesting. We're not just going to stick to 1 rep range. In fact, there's going to be 3 different rep ranges we're going to utilize, and you'll notice volume increases basically in the last phase, phase 3, where it gets pretty intense. And then after that, if you want to repeat it, you start back at phase 1 with a slightly higher percentage. So instead of starting at 70%, it'd be 72.5%. And so in that way, we work with volume like a wave, because if we just keep handling more and more volume over time, eventually we will overtrain. So there's a lot of thought put into this. Let's break it down briefly. Again, for those that want to see it right now, it's all in the description. You should watch this video, however, to give you context. So weeks 1 to 5 are a 5x5. You start at 70%, adding 2.5% every single week until you get to 80%. From there, you're going to deload, and then your new rep scheme is a 4x6. Volume's basically the same, total volume from 25 to 24 reps. You're gonna go back up to 80% at a 4x6. That might sound like a lot, but keep in mind, because you're in a lean mass phase, that's gonna be week 10. At that point, you should be up 4 or 5 pounds. What felt pretty heavy at 170 pounds, when you're 175, 176, as long as you're lean and you're in that surplus, shouldn't feel as bad. Then the final phase is where things get tricky, where we're really increasing the volume. We go from 24 total reps in phase 2 to 32 total reps in phase 3. For the first 3 weeks, what you will be doing is a 4x8, so 32 total reps, 70%, 72.5%, then 75%. And now, based upon how much weight you've gained, how you're feeling, maybe where you are when it comes to your training stage. People that are late beginners, early intermediates could probably get away with more volume than someone that's more a later intermediate. I would recommend from there that you go to 3x8 at 77.5% and then also a 3x8 at 80%. If this doesn't sound feasible for you because honestly you're really strong and doing 80% of 400 pounds for your squat, if you squat 500, so that would be 400 pounds and a 4x8 or 3x8 doesn't sound feasible, you could totally cut it at this point and then just start from phase 1 again. But you have some options. You could do weeks 14 and 15 at a 3x8, or if things are feeling great, and I want to stress this, no rep should be a grinder. You should not feel at any point you'll fail any set. You can do a 3x8 or a 4x8 for weeks 14 and 15. From there, what you'll do is go right back down to 72.5% for phase 1 and repeat the whole block, the entire cycle again, but what you'll do is everything's increased by 2.5%. In this way, you know what you're doing week to week. You're making some gains because you're handling gradually over time, more volume, more intensity, working through different rep ranges over a 3-month period. I think this makes a lot more sense than a lot of hypertrophy programs you see out there, and best of all, this is free for you. It's a pet peeve of mine to see a lot of hypertrophy programs that don't tell you what you should do, and they leave out the most important element, how you should progress over time. This fixes that. Utilize this for any of your main movements when you're trying to do a hypertrophy phase. Make sure you're in a caloric surplus, and you will notice, I guarantee, a lot of gains. I'm putting myself through the exact same process. I'm documenting it. I'll have an update for week 8 in about a week and a half, and then from there, we're just gonna keep building more and more muscle. Anyways, you need to know what you should be doing. You need to be getting a little stronger over time, handling more volume. I think this progression scheme is perfect for that. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you like this video, if you found it useful, if you plan on using this progression scheme, make sure to like the damn video, and I'll see all you guys, my rascals, my toners, in that next video. Peace.
You know, I was in Mortal Kombat with a fucking bat.